Hey everybody, this is Tyson.
And Logan.
And you're listening to Dad Bods Beards podcast. It's a show that gives you a fresh look on being a father, a husband, and honestly, a man being in today's world.
For people who want to have a good time, laugh, and be uplifted, thanks for subscribing and listening. Now for the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Dad Bods Beards. It's Logan and Tyson here, and today we're going to talk about something that's actually probably fresh on your mind and is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds and fresh in our minds, which is like being an entrepreneur and starting a business and just the grind and giving everything to start something new. So I wanted to talk about that because you are fresh off of the TV show. Can you say the name? Can we?
Yeah, with blocks, yeah.
Yeah. So the blocks, what is it? Like, people have asked me that while you were gone all week, like, what is it? And I don't feel like I accurately described it.
Blocks is an entrepreneurial show that teaches us a specific subject on entrepreneurship. Then you break out in pods, which is 10 of us to 12 of us of entrepreneurs in their rightful areas, their rightful niches. And then we have a coach. We have 15 minutes to write a script of what we were taught, teach it, and then we have 15 minutes of communicating with the coach and the mentor and going over that, and then they score us on what we talked about, how it is, and then at the very end of the night, the winner of that pod will go and compete against the rest of the people who won.
So it is kind of like a game show.
Yes, but what I really like about it is, like, people will spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go learn how to run a business, whether it be their MBA or something like this. What I really liked about this is they gave us 2 hours to teach us something very, very, very specific. Like, we would dive deep into customer retention, customer nurturing, something like that. And then they would teach us 2 hours. Then they would have us basically tell everyone how we're going to implement that in our own business, and then we would have a coach or a mentor talk to us about it for 15 minutes and just say, hey, this is what you said, this is what I agree with, this is what I don't agree with, this is maybe something you want to implement in, and stuff like that. So I have at least 100 things that I'm going to start implementing into Copper John's, simply because of the things that I was taught. And that's what I mean, is like, this was so educational, and I am so grateful that I was there, because not only that, but the connections I made.
Yeah.
And the people that we will eventually have on Copper John, or on Dad Bods and Beards. And I'm looking really forward to it, because what I really like, and we'll talk about this in a second, is running a business. First of all, running a small business or a startup is a lonely battle.
Yeah.
No one understands what you're going through unless you're going through it. Like, I can tell
or
people,
like you have been through it.
Yeah, and it's you have depression, you have anxiety, you wonder how things are going to be done. You sometimes just want to quit because the battle's hard. Like, it is freaking hard.
Yeah.
And what's nice is there was 100 like-minded people like you there, and where we could just talk and learn from each other, and it was like, oh, I'm not alone. And I really did feel that way. Like, I felt like you understand what I'm going through, because you were in the same same thing as what I went through. And then our coaches used to be where we are, and so now they're they're just 1 or 2 steps ahead of us, because they're CEOs and owners of their own company, rightfully, and so instead of like 2 million and under, they're like 3 million and over.
So do you feel like it was kind of like, because do you feel like it was kind of like a mentorship type scenario? Because everybody that I've talked to, or everybody you follow online that has like built their business to this and this, they always talk about mentors. They
100%. So all the coaches, except one, offered to help me. Like, call me whenever you want. I have their emails, I have their phone numbers.
That's cool.
The owner of Beta Blocks West, he wants to be on our podcast, but he is
really,
he is legitly, like, he would always call himself, oh, dude, I'm a douche, I know I am. He's like, but I'm going to be kind, but I'm going to be harsh, and I'm
sure.
But he would just outright say that, and he was aggressively kind. That's the best way I can put it.
Aggressively kind.
So he's feisty, he's hardcore, he's a hard worker, he's kind, but he's going to get it done. He's going to get everything.
Interesting.
And so I really like that. It's just like I came up with aggressively kind because that's what I felt like looking at him. Like,
That's a good idea.
he is kind of a jerk. He is kind of this, but he's had to learn that because for me, I've been a people pleaser. I've been all this kind of stuff forever, and it's hurt.
Well,
Running
yeah,
running a business, like people will want, people ask. Like I get asked 3 times a week for money.
sure.
And I'm like, guys, I haven't paid myself. This is, if I pay you anything, it's like, can you pay my wife's bill? I've had that before.
Bail?
Mm-hmm.
Pay my wife's bail?
Yeah, bill. And all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I can't do that.
Interesting.
But it's a lonely road, and people don't understand.
Well, that's one thing is obviously you and I have the venture that we've embarked on with Dad Bods and Beards.
Uh-huh.
Not just the podcast tied in with Tommy, but then also the apparel company and just tying this with Copper Johns and my personal social media and this whole kind of like empire that we're hoping to build, and like the other ideas of creating our own way of fulfilling this and creating our own way to manufacture this and try to like start at the ground level to create one way to create not only just like security and like fulfilledness for our lives, but like we've both talked about the fact that we want to impact other people's lives. We want to provide
100%.
jobs. We want to be able to supply people with incomes to raise their families and things like that. And so that's why I was kind of talking about the mentor thing, because I feel like we're at that stage. Like we get amazing advice from Tommy all the time on like how to, because we've never branched into this side of the media world until we paired up with Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've never branched into this side of like running ads for Copper Johns until you met some of these people. But that's something I've noticed is that a lot of the guys that are super successful, they do have this aspect of like, you kind of have to be aggressive and you kind of have to be, quote, like a jerk. But then I think back to like, I played sports, you played sports. Like there's that time where like your coach is just like super aggressive, screaming at you, you got to get it done. But then they'll turn around and like teach you the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's an appropriate space for like, you got to be the aggressive, do this, no questions asked, you got to have grit, whatever. But then you turn around and have to have the time where you're like, okay, but here's the reason why you have to be like that. Here's the reason why you have to learn to shut this out and be able to put your nose to the grind. So I feel like it's this weird gray area that you kind of have to learn to navigate. But this is all new to me because I've never started like actually paid for and applied and was granted an LLC like we did together with Dad Bods. Before that, it was just side businesses that was like cash under the table that we couple $1,000 here and there as I finished little jobs. And then I see this with my brother's company, kind of like going back to what you were saying, where like people just assume because they see a business that's operating that there's just money pouring out of every crevice. Like, no, we've got like $1 million+ in excavation equipment, and those all require payments and insurance and maintenance. And it's like after payroll and all of these bills are paid, it's like we're still here. Like, so I see that a lot with, I see like, no offense, like I see in the last 2 years since I've known you, I've seen the gray coming through in your beard and in your hair. And my brother, I've known him for, 34, almost 35 years. I see the gray coming through in him. And, like I've watched my dad turn gray from his stresses with the companies that he works for. And so I think there's a lot to be said about somebody, regardless of whether they're doing it, quote, right or not, that you're just willing to put in the work for the people that you're trying to provide it for, whether it's your family, whether it's friends. And so
one thing that I learned is to go back with that real quick, aggressively kind to me, it's a new term that we just came up with.
Yeah. Nobody steal that. We're going to put it on a shirt, trademark. verbal trademark right now.
I am always going to do what's best for my customer.
Yeah.
I'm always going to do what's best to have now mind you, right now what's best for the customer might be different than what it is tomorrow because I'm learning.
Yeah.
And I learned a ton where I need to do better for the customer, but I didn't realize that. I thought I was doing amazing, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this. So I'm excited for that. But I need to step back and be more Michelangelo, like we were talking about, looking at David, where I'm stepping back and I'm like, okay, I need to focus on this and I need to focus on this. I need to tweak this. And so I need to implement people into the business so that they can help me tweak it so I can take a step back and look.
Yeah.
Which means I need to be a little bit more aggressive in hiring and looking at overall and not taking time on social media so much. Like that's why you're here. Or take so much time on doing this or this, where I can say, hey, we need to adjust this right here. We need to adjust this right here. So that eventually the customer's experience is like from onboarding all the way till the success, which
Yeah.
means that they continue to purchase because their experience is just amazing. And then we'll continue just to cycle it and just continue to teach them and not teach them, and continue to give them even more experiences and cooler experiences.
So do you feel like it's a hard position to be in as somebody who's built, Copper Johns is your baby.
Yeah.
Copper Johns, I feel like, should be credited for where we're at today because it's the whole reason that you and I connected. Do you feel like you have a hard time letting go of certain things
Oh,
and letting
100%.
somebody else run with that ball?
100%. Like I'm so picky when it comes to the product itself, because Candace and I make
Yeah.
everything. And so
Which is a
that
big
is
reason why you haven't gone to contract manufacturing, is because you haven't found somebody that can do it to your standards yet.
And so I'm to the point where we have all the tooling. So I'm going to bring people in house. I don't want to give it to contractors.
Sure.
And so it might cost me $1 more a bottle or something, but to me it's going to be worth it because the customer experience,
what you're
I know
putting
for a
out.
fact. But then the SOPs. So you have to create how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, everything in there, what to clean, when to clean it, when to put it in the freezer, when to take it out. I have to create all of those SOPs, the processes and processes, so that anyone with a brain can go in and do it.
Sure.
And I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
And so I need to hire people who I completely trust
Yeah.
to do that, because that is really, really hard for me.
Well,
Like giving you social media, how long did it take me to say, hey,
year and a half.
yeah, and you're amazing at
Well,
it.
I mean, I was already doing like putting up videos every now and then for you,
Yeah, but
but
this
now
is
to
different.
the point where I'm, in charge of
This
quite a
is
bit of it.
different. I don't really trust a lot of people like that, and like fulfillment. Like I make everything, but how hard was it for me to have someone?
Yeah, and
afterwards.
but that's the thing is I've
And
realized,
it's been rough for me.
But I think as I've realized is that I think this is from my own personal experience, like with launching Dad Bods. Like I just had a conversation with my mom the other day because like I've been so freaking busy. Like I'm not normally the guy that misses texts or misses phone calls a ton, and I had called my mom yesterday and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I've been kind of MIA. I'm like literally admitted, I was like, I'm realizing how much starting your own business takes up the time you don't have.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of stuff we don't see on the back end. Like there's a lot of stuff that, like the social media aspect of this, but then there's also the side of the apparel side we're trying to launch, and then the websites, and then the emails, and then the the legality of it, and all of just this different, and then talking with this vendor or that graphic designer. There's just so much. And then on top of that, helping run social media for Copper Johns, running the media side of Dad Bods, and then still keeping up with my own personal social media and my life and my 9 to 5, which in more of a reality is more like 7 to 5:30 or 6. Like it's more. So I'm realizing like I don't have all the time in the world that I wish that I had to accomplish all this stuff.
Well, that's why I hired someone to do my emails. That's why. But now I'm going to talk to her and say, hey, Melissa,
Yeah.
will you be willing to answer all my DMs? And I'll let people know.
Yeah.
Also, I thought about doing an app that responds and says to everyone who messaged me, because I care about them.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you're so busy, like you've seen it. You're on my social media, but you don't respond to them.
Yeah, I don't.
I get hundreds of messages a day.
Well, and the same thing, I had that same thought too, because I do too. But on my own personal stuff and sometimes on the Dad Bod stuff, it's not like a product question. It's like
They want to talk.
they want to talk. And I'm like, I feel so bad because I don't look at it all the time because I turn my notifications off because like same thing as it buzzes a lot. And that sounds really douchey to say it that way. But when you have something, you put something out and then it's on a trend, which I shaved my beard off and things have been blowing up for the last 2 weeks on just a bunch of different viral videos. So I turn off my notifications. But then I had the thought the other day of like, oh, I needed to respond to this guy that I reached out to, and it was through my DMs on Instagram. And then I realized in my request side, and then like the hidden request side where like the AI will automatically filter
Mm-hmm.
different messages. I don't know what the filter is because there's messages in there that are completely fine and completely normal from regular people, but it like filters them in the hidden requests.
I think it's when they're not friends.
Well, yeah, I don't know, or they're not like mutual friends or something like that. And there was like
Yeah.
5 or 6 messages in there of guys that are just saying the nicest things and like I've never this and you're inspiring me to this. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I was up for like another hour or two later than I was planning because I was just shooting messages back to people. And then that plays
Because that matters, and
it does
and
matter.
I care about that too. I want to respond and let them know I care about what they're
Yeah.
saying.
And one of them was like it was so inspiring. One of them was a 17-year-old kid from Germany, and he was like, you know, these are the struggles I have, and I don't really have anybody to talk to. I'm out on my own, and he's like, I view you as a good man, and that's what I want to be. And so I'm like, I've got to respond to this kid, and I sent him a book. Like it was 3 chunks because Instagram was like, that's too long, that's too long. So I was like, copy paste, copy paste. But the point that I'm making is I'm like, I've been so wrapped up in trying to like make my social media and Copper Johns and Dad Bods and Beards this big 3-way conglomerate of like a empire that we're trying to build that is just leaving a good impact on the world and men's life, and something that hopefully we can turn into something that supports our families so we can put more time and effort into it, so we put people in place so that we don't miss those messages.
Well, and I think that's another reason why we're starting Patreon, is because then, even though will cost money, it's more of a, these people are really, really wanting to talk to us.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be able to take time out of, because like, hey, they're taking time and they're taking time out of their hard-earned money, because everyone knows this, we're penny pinching right now. Everyone is. And so it's just, that will help us. It's like, hey, these guys, we'll definitely answer them and all that. And I answer everyone. It's just sometimes they'll take 2 or 3 days.
And that's the thing, is like, that's what I'm starting to notice. And like, I'm a baby in the whole like business startup side, but like it's a whole new experience for me to be like, I was talking to my wife about this the other day of like I am admittedly obsessed with this right now, because if I'm not, and these are my responsibilities with Dad Bods and Beards, and you have yours and Copper Johns and things like that. Like, if I am not absolutely obsessed with this, it will not go anywhere, because the fail rate is so unbelievably high. And not that I'm afraid to fail, because, well, no, I am afraid to fail, but we have to be willing to fail, right? I mean, that's what everybody says. That's what Gary Vaynerchuk says. When everybody says, oh, I failed 15 times before or whatever. And I can sit here and probably tell you 4, 5, 6, 7 different times that I failed at something that I thought was the end of the world when it happened. But in the moment now, I feel like with what we're starting and what we have going, and I'll get on this soapbox for a second, and the fire that is catching from it, and the people that are noticing, and the people that are starting to feel inspired and follow along and add to it in not only in the beard care industry, but just in social media in general, and like the impact that this has had, and the fact that we know people are watching and paying attention, it just gives me this fire that I've never experienced of like, I don't have, like, I had this conversation with my wife, and I was like, I don't have the luxury or the option of letting this fail. So it's like, if I have any say over this or any impact at all, like, if it fails, it's because it's because something didn't work, but I'm not going to be able to, I will 100% know for a surety that it's not because I didn't give it enough effort. And the same thing from you too.
Let's talk about that, because that's how I started with Copper Johns.
Yeah.
It was passion. Remember how we talked about passion versus discipline? You will 100%
Lose the
burn
passion.
out.
Oh yeah, I've already burnt out here.
Oh yeah, like, and it will come and go. It will come and go, dude. I burn out so much because I just don't sleep.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I need to hire people. But going from that, you're obsessed. You're highly passionate about this. So am I. Like I love this. This is.
Yeah.
I was telling everyone, I'm like, I'm talking to my best friend, and it's therapeutic. That's what we're doing. Like, and we're bringing people along with us that are becoming our friends. And I love this, and I love this community that we're creating, and everything about it. But there will be days where the last thing we want to do is this.
Well, and that's the thing is
or
this is
or work on the website,
yeah.
or work on new creatives or anything like that. It's just like, dude, it takes freaking time. Or
Well,
email chains. Like, we're going to have to send out emails. Who's going to create those emails? You know, all this kind of
mhm.
stuff that I'm going to have to do. It's the last thing I want to do.
Well, and I've noticed this requires a lot of humility too, because um I like admittedly like uh right off the bat with the gal that designed the Dad Bods and Beards logo. I've worked with
Hmm.
her a bunch of times over and over, and she did an amazing job on the logo. And I reached out and there was some miscommunication, and then I had to step back enough to be like, okay, I dropped the ball there.
Hmm.
That's on me. But that was like I never experienced this before. I thought I had all my ducks in a row, and she posed some good perspective, and I was like, all right,
You
fair
have to
enough.
sometimes take it up.
And that's the same thing of kind of that's where like my wife has a lot to offer to this, because
Hmm.
she's just as much a part of this in my brain as it is like you and Candace and Tommy. It's just like it's we're also invested and have so much riding on things like this, like moving along and progressing and being successful, that my wife adds this much needed side of reality to my, almost like manic thought process,
Hmm.
because she has to kind of keep me in check at times, which is necessary because I do have the tendency and ability to become obsessive and manic and unrealistic about things, because that's where the bipolar side comes in, and I can get very like serotonin and dopamine boosted about something and fall so romantically in love with an idea, and then I'm not thinking rationally, which part of that helps a lot with creating a business, I can imagine, because it's helped me a lot.
But it's not healthy on your relationships.
But then it's my wife pointing out like,
We're here.
we're like, your kids are right here,
Hmm.
I'm right here, family time is right here, but you're on, like set aside time to be in your basement lair,
So yeah, let's try and talk
things
about
like
that.
that.
So first, passion. So we're going to have that moment where we're just
Yeah.
like, this sucks, and it will
Yeah.
happen. Right now, not this part. This part's the easy part.
Yeah.
It's everything else behind the scenes that no one sees. That's the hard part, and that's when discipline will come in, because you won't want to do it.
Yeah.
You won't want to do it. I'm going to have to create all these email chains. I'm going to have to create a legal returns, legality terms. I'm going to have to create returns, and I mean, there's so much. I have a whole list of things that I have to do for the website.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Oh, for the Dad Bods. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's the last thing I want to do. And then also on top of that, I have so many things I have to do for the beard company, because I just realized I didn't know what I didn't know, and
Yeah.
now I have so much.
And
more
now
to-
coming back from the show, you're like, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I got to do this. I have 100 things I got to do. Like, I don't have an FAQ, or frequently asked questions. How the freak do I not have a frequently
Really?
asked
I never
questions
thought
on my
about
website?
that. Everybody has that.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
like, why don't I have that?
Well, and see, this is the thing too, is I'm realizing like I've got a friend that I was going to the gym regularly at like 4 o'clock in the morning with.
Yeah.
And then there hit a point where we stepped things up with Dad Bods and Copper Johns and whatever, that I had to like take some time and my personal social media to like integrate a bunch of stuff, work on a bunch of stuff or whatever. And I was like, oh, give me a week. And then that week turned into 2 weeks. And then it was like 2.5 weeks. And it's like, I'm barely like, I went to the gym once with him last week. And then I went with the gym with him like one or like a couple times this week. But it's like, I'm realizing I texted him. I was like, oh, well, maybe we need to just switch up the time, because 4 a.m. is kind of rough when I'm
4 a.m.
staying
is
up,
rough.
when I'm staying up till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, editing, things like that, to still have time for my family. And then talking to my wife, she's like, well, like, what's the other time that you would be able to go though? And I'm like,
Fair.
well, if I went at 8:30 at night, that's when I'm normally sitting and editing and doing a bunch of stuff before I go to bed. So it's more of like, that's where the discipline comes back in, of like, if I want to be able to go to the gym, not only to, work on myself, but spend time with that friend, it's also like, I've just got to make time to do it and discipline myself. I'm in this stage where I'm realizing like,
Yeah.
I can't sit down and watch the show I want to watch.
Mm-mm.
It's going to take me 2 weeks to watch a movie, because it's going to be on my 15-minute stop and eat while I'm at work. Because this is the thing that I don't think some people realize when they see somebody, and I'm not trying to sound like a douchebag, when they see somebody with a following on social media, which I'm getting, it's growing still
Yeah,
significantly.
you're like 4 people.
Yeah, 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
With a couple more zeros
With
behind
you
it.
and me.
Yeah.
With you and me following yourself.
But I've gotten messages from people like from high school that were like, "Oh my gosh, dude, I didn't realize, you're doing like this and this and this." They're like, you must be rolling it in." And I'm like, I'm not, because I really haven't been putting a lot of like effort into like brand deals and like making this something that it could be. I'm maybe looking into that now, but it's like, I still have a job. I still have a full-time job
Me
that's
too.
60 hours a week, and so do you. So it's like I don't have like all this time during the day to like plan content and edit it. Like most of the time if I'm posting something on Dad Bods, it's like I'm in a fuel aisle filling up my truck and I'm editing a video at the gas
Mm-hmm.
station, and then I'm driving to McDonald's to connect to the Wi-Fi while I'm waiting for them to like make something, some lunch, and then I'm posting that, putting it to the story, collaborating, and then going and dropping an excavator off on a job site. And I'm like, I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
But I'm like finding myself waking up and doing it in the next day because like
Discipline.
it's the passion, and then it's the discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just I was talking with Tommy a couple weeks ago of like, hey, can we take this out of the episode? I didn't realize it was in there. And I was like, I don't want it to cause problems with such and such. And he's like, I'm not in the business of impacting people in a negative way. So like, absolutely. Because that's the thing, is like, we want to have a positive impact.
Kind of
on
like
people.
when I went on a rant for 10 minutes and we had to take
Yeah.
the whole thing out.
No, but my point being in bringing that up though is that like we're doing this, and the passion and the drive behind this and just business in general is like, I feel like we have good motives. Like I feel like our desire to have the podcast, and the reason why it's doing well is because at its core, it's to help people. And I wholeheartedly believe no matter what you believe in, like that's why things are successful, is because your intention is that it's not like a vain, you know, narcissistic intention.
Well, if you keep your core values, which mine is God, family, work, friends, like God is first, family second, and if you keep those, everything that you do is going to be because of that.
Sure.
And so, I when I do stuff like when I say I want to do so well with Copper Johns, I want my customers to have the best experience ever because I care about them.
Yeah.
I want Copper Johns to do well because I care about my family. I want be proud of who you are. I want everyone to feel happy and secure and loving for themselves, and from this and from Dad Bods and Beards, because I believe in God and I know He loves them.
Sure.
And I know we're going religious all of a sudden, but that's kind of how it is. It's like I want people just to be happy.
Yeah.
And we're not always happy, but let me rephrase that. We can go through anything, but if we're living our core values and we're working our butts off and everything, we're going to be okay. And I think that's our message, is like, you are having a rough go at it,
Yeah.
but you're going to be okay. And that
Yeah.
matters. And that's what I'm trying to tell people is like, guys, what you're going through sucks.
Yeah.
Absolutely sucks. But you're going to be okay.
And see, this is one thing I think that's been important for bring, and this is one thing I think that's important for me to bring up, because I've skated past it a few times and I don't think I've ever touched on it, but I want to, now that you've said that. One of the biggest dynamics of our relationship, and the reason why I think this works, is that we do have a lot of similarities, but there is some clear differences that we have, but those don't make a difference in how we treat each other or how we view each other.
Like our hand size.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have baby hands. I have at least.
You have bratwursts for fingers.
No,
but
sorry.
no, like wholeheartedly, like you said, your core values are, God first and then family and all this stuff or whatever. And me, where I'm at in my life is I don't know where I stand with God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I stand with religion. I don't know where I stand with all of this stuff. And to me, the fact that there is no judgment that comes from you,
Mm-hmm.
but yet we are still like aligned on so many other good-hearted things, is just proof that there is so much division in this world that people act like they can't have a relationship or can't have anything to do with somebody because we are different on this one core topic, whether it's religion or politics or gender identity or sexuality. Of all these things, people act like that is an undisputed, we can't talk about that, or we can't be friends, or we can't be this because you think that way. But that is just proof that, like, when we first met and started hanging out and I was like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at, and I know this is where you're at, it was like, okay. And for me, like, that means so much. And that's why, we started in this venture together, and I felt comfortable, like, going into business with you on this, because at its core, regardless of where we might be on little finite points, whether they're of big magnitude or small magnitude, it's at its core, we want to help people. We want to take care of people. We want to improve people's lives. And it's the differences that makes the world go around. It's the differences that makes everybody unique. And when you start focusing on people's differences and then acting like, because they're different than you, that they're just set up for failure, or they're wrong, or you can't be associated with them, or they're a bad person, like that's where you lose me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that you and I are just so much aligned, and I never felt any weird animosity from you because of the fact that we might disagree on one or two
Because
things.
there's none.
And
Yeah.
that's, to me, that's healthy and mature. And I know that's a little bit of a sidetrack of what we're talking about with like entrepreneur and
100%
business.
way sidetracked.
But at the same time, like my crazy neurodivergent, you know, like mental ill brain makes the connection, because to me, if that was a point of contention between you and I, none of this would work.
It's true.
None of this would work.
Or vice versa.
Dad Bods and Beards wouldn't be a thing. You and I probably wouldn't be able to connect very much on
But see,
Papa
you feel the
John's.
same way. Like, my
Yeah.
son is coming home after 2 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to help record, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, you can't make it.
Because of freaking work.
But it happens. And I'm not, but I don't, like, I
Yeah.
feel sad you're not there. But of course, I'm not upset. And, but it's just like you and your family are as much as like any of my other family that's coming. Like,
Yeah.
like, love you. And I know I really do. And I said it weird.
Touch my knee.
But it's just there's like today or last week I met 100 people I've never met before,
Yeah, that's cool.
and there was only one thing that had all of us in common was we ran a small business or a startup, and we didn't talk about politics, we didn't talk about religion, we didn't talk about any of that kind of stuff, and I loved every one of those guys. I thought they were amazing. There's different sexualities in there and all that kind of stuff.
Like
And
races, everything like that, right?
oh yeah, I
Yeah.
had so much fun.
But
And I had so much fun. And I said some things I'm like, I should have said that, because I say, you know how I sometimes like will say inappropriate
you're like
things.
You're like, hey, give me the words back.
I'll say some inappropriate things on accident just because I have no filter. and
That's
and
funny.
people just laughed. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
but at the same time, and I know this is kind of cliche, but like you were being yourself.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I'm saying, is that like there is so much division, whether it's in society or politics or all religion, all these other things, of like people in certain places of influence that are telling you and telling the rest of the world that you have to think this way, and whether you subscribe to that or not. And obviously we're pouring right into the political season and all that fun stuff that comes with it. The message, I feel like, how this ties into the episode, is that I'm glad that you said that about your experience with all those 100 different people, is that you're realizing like, here's all these people that on paper, if you sat down and everybody wrote out all of their stances on every these different things, like then you start creating division.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start finding where you disagree with people. But because you guys all came together in something that you had in common, now you got a bunch of friends you didn't know that you had.
And I really don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, if they're atheists, if they're not, whatever they are. It's just I really, really like them all.
And that's what I'm saying, and how that even spills over into business, is that you and I, and we won't share that here, we've talked about different ways of like, everyone's like, oh, you pandering to this community or pandering to that community. I'm like, or being all inclusive, because everybody deals with mental health, or everybody deals with, like self-worth. Everybody deals with motivation and discipline. And we're realizing that like we're all human beings, and dads
we
come
all
in all
deserve to be loved.
dads come in all different shapes and sizes. Moms come in all different shapes and sizes, and like human beings in general. And it's like, I feel like we're trying to like us, and then a couple of other, I say a couple, but it's probably, thousands of people on social media or whatever, are trying to just push this wall forward of like a new way of looking at things and doing things, and being like, this is super healthy because it's working for us. And it's like, I feel better about myself than I ever have, but I've lessened how judgmental I look at people. And I've lessened how much I think negatively of certain people in certain situations. And it's like, I take a step back and I'm like, Logan 7 years ago would be baffled that I'm mentally stable. I'm making enough money to support my family and put money in savings. I've found one of the best friends I will ever have. And I'm a new business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would be blown away, because I could barely get up in the morning without hyperventilating that I was going to be making it through the day without a suicidal thought. And all of that comes from
That's so cool though.
like, and it all boils down to like personal connections and setting aside like societal standards and just doing what you feel is right. And so how that all continues to tie in is like, this just feels right because I just stopped listening to the wrong people and started listening to like everything on the inside.
Something really ticked me off yesterday. I was really close to sending it to you, and I wasn't going to.
I did?
No.
Oh,
I was going
gonna,
to send it to
let
you.
fire away, buddy.
No, I was going to send it to you. Because I feel like we're making an impact. I feel like people who are listening to us are feeling that they're loved, feeling like, hey, there's hope, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But there was a guy who posted, and it wasn't a small guy, it was a big guy, very popular, and just posted and said, my parents disciplined me, therefore I'm not a wuss like all these other people.
Oh boy.
But he didn't use the wuss and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, I discipline my kids.
Mhm.
But I don't destroy their thought. I don't destroy who they are.
Yeah.
I don't attack them personally. I don't harm them. I don't do anything like that. I discipline with love.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yelling at your children,
Yeah.
hitting your children is not that what is that teaching them?
Yeah.
Quit fighting so you hit your kid. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox.
No.
But what I'm saying is that there's still need. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think there'll ever be a need for you and me to tell people that you are loved, you matter, you care, or like we care about you. Like, I have chills because that's how much I like.
Yeah.
This is important to me. Because I need people to know that you need to be proud of who you are. When you wake up in the morning, you can go out and conquer the world because of who you are. Not because someone says something, but because you are a freaking monster.
And that's how it ties into Copper Johns. Like,
Yeah.
I know this might be maybe hard for some people to, some of you guys to follow, but the point is that
it's real.
No,
We're
no,
everywhere
but
today.
but this is what I'm saying is the way that it works in my brain is that it's not that hard to follow, because if you scale it back, the motto for Copper Johns is be proud of who you are. So Copper Johns was born out of the fact that you wanted to improve the outward expression and self-confidence of guys. And that's what we've talked about. And that your whole pitch on the blocks was Copper Johns is to improve this, the outward expression and confidence of guys. And then Dad Bods and Beards is a way that we work on the inner self-confidence and the inner way. So I know it seems like we're kind of all over the place, but that's why I wanted to talk about this. And that's why I wanted to boost this up, was because, like, it's not just like starting a business. I'm realizing, and I'm very new in this. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form. These are all things that I'm learning myself. Is it's not X's and O's. It's the whole freaking alphabet.
And it's
because
lonely.
you have to have the ability to think outside of the box in every way possible, and it can be very lonely, even though you're surrounded by people.
Well,
But-
the more successful you become, the more people will come out of the woodworks for help, or they'll resent you.
Yeah.
And there was someone who this past week who came to me and who knows my business well because they researched everything, and they're like, how many companies like you are out there? And I'm like, literally thousands. And how many are like you? And I'm like,
Yeah.
20 maybe. I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, just like the men's care. Men's
Yeah,
care in general,
and I'm just, I really don't know, to be honest with you. And he's like, you're doing something special, and when I'm in my lab by myself, and I look at everything I have to do, all the bills I have to pay, and all the checklists, and just like, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to pay this bill? It gets scary. You lose sleep, you lose everything, and that's where it's the lonely part. It's just like, because no one understands and no one cares.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they should care, but what I am saying is there will be a time when Dad Bods and Beards are like, we'll suck.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? And it gets hard, and no one will care, because why should they?
Yeah.
And only a select few people, even your wife, your spouse, like soon your wife, she won't know all the ins and outs of Dad Bods and Beards, and she doesn't need to know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like, I wish not you, me tell your wife, but tell my wife, I'm like, this is how I'm feeling. This is I wish you knew, like, but I don't want to put that stress on her.
Yeah. No,
Like, why would I want to tell my wife, hey, guess what? We have $35,000 of bills this week or this month.
And that's, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is like with my brother's company, like payroll with as many guys as we have, it's 45 grand every 2 weeks. And that's on the low end. That's not including like overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, from a business perspective, like you can see how people are just like, eventually people hit a point where they close the doors, because it's like, it just weighs on you, or it's like, it just doesn't work out or whatever. So with,
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
no,
well, it's
that's
just,
what
but
we're
even
talking about
but
it.
even now though, like, all of a sudden states are starting to close, and it's states are starting to pass laws that if you sell a certain amount, even on e-commerce, into their state, you have to start paying taxes.
Ugh.
And I owe like taxes up the wazoo now and to like 20 states because I've hit that threshold. And I'm just like, well, that's another thing I got to start
But
doing.
part of the reason I want to talk about this is we have a lot of companies and businesses that follow us, not only just in the beard care world, but like apparel companies and other companies I've noticed in our follower base on Instagram and things like that are following us. And I'm sure they can relate to a lot of these different struggles and a lot of these different ups and downs. So from someone in your perspective, and this is maybe how we'll kind of close it out, where you've been in business for 4 years now. We just hit the 4 year anniversary with Copper Johns, and now you're starting another business venture with me and
And I
Dad
had the
Bods and
beard
Beards.
at
And then
barbershop.
we have, oh yeah, and then you have the barbershop, and then we have the podcast that it's me, you, and Tommy, and this whole thing that we're creating, and then we're a part of a whole, like, there's just a million things that we're doing.
And we're going to be doing some other things that we're not going to talk about now.
So that's what I'm saying, is that like with all of this stacked on you from someone in your perspective and someone in your position, maybe to me who's just getting into all of this stuff, and maybe anybody who's listening, like what's a piece of like motivation or like advice or something that you would tell to somebody, like, or what would you tell Tyson 4 years ago when you were scared to start? Even though you're in a position where you don't feel like you've got
I'll say
everything
this. I feel
landed.
like I'm more serious than I ever have been. And it's a good thing and a bad thing because I don't feel like I'm as gentle, or
Sure.
maybe I'm more gentle. And that's not a problem. It's just I feel like I'm maybe more secure who I am, but I'm more serious for sure. Like I used to be, I used to have to be the life of the party, and now I'm okay with sitting back and just like letting everyone be the party and me
Yeah.
just chilling. But I would 100% say learn to delegate.
Hmm.
Learn to know that you are not the company. The company is the company. You are. When Copper Johns owes $35,000 of bills that month, Tyson doesn't. Copper Johns does.
Hmm. So you have to differentiate.
And
Dissociate.
I have literally I'm it was oddly odd.
Oddly odd.
That last night I was, I get home, I have all this stuff, I'm writing stuff down, and I'm looking at my bills for July, and I'm like, okay. And I wasn't stressed.
Hmm.
I'm like, it'll get done. I always figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's not me. It's Copper Johns. And as Copper Johns CEO, I will take care of it.
Yeah.
And it'll be taken care of. And I will have to little here, fix it and twig it. But it's like, dude, I got this. Yeah. But with help of people and advice and stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's going to be fine. And I'm not stressed like I used to be.
Yeah.
But stuff will happen and it'll get me stressed. New things, like I'm starting to understand separation. But every now and then something new that I've never experienced before will hit me, and then that'll create a little more stress, like fulfillment.
Yeah.
But now I figured out fulfillment. Like, oh, I was doing this wrong on Copper John's side in order for fulfillment.
Yeah.
Now I've evened it out.
You're like, yay, learning.
Yeah, yeah. But I would say separation, and keeping your sense of self, and knowing that you can never. How do I say this without sounding like you're going to lose your marriage? Because you're not. But something is always going to be awry. Like, you're not, if you give all your business the energy, you're not going to be with your family. If you're giving all your business or your family the energy, you're not going to be with your business. It's never going to be a full, like, everything. So if you have 6 hours with the business and you have 1 hour with your family, give that hour to your family.
Be there. Yeah.
Just get off your phone, get all of that kind of stuff, but just know that just know that you're probably not going to be able to give them the 6 hours that you want to. You want to,
Yeah.
but you can't. And then eventually, as you delegate and as you start to bring people on, be smart about who you bring on. Take a step back and look, where am I hurting the worst, and look backwards.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I can do this a lot better than this. I need help with this.
Yeah.
And learn how to step backwards and do all that kind of stuff and delegate that, so that you eventually can have 1 hour in the business and 6 hours with your family.
Yeah.
But
That's the dream, right?
Yeah. But open communication with your spouse, your significant other, your loved ones, just so they know that, hey, we're having a family party, but guess what? I can't be there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but and they won't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
They won't. But if you have open communication, I don't even know if you get used to it. You just know that this is part of the discipline, and that's why a lot of marriages get ruined because of entrepreneurship, because it's a clash sometimes.
Well, the one thing, and I think that's great advice, and I think we should probably end there. And the last thing that I was going to say, because we've been kind of leaving with challenges and things like that. One thing that I have started kind of like really trying to live at my core is that for years I was self-doubting in so many different ways, whether that was mental health or, like my abilities to do this, or like I'll admit I like try to shut people up all the time when they talk about like, reach on social media and like what I do with social media. But my challenge is to like give yourself the benefit of the doubt, to bolster yourself up, be a little bit narcissistic for a bit. Like if you know that you're good at something, like believe in that at your core and live
But
that.
that's not narcissistic. That's just
But the world
confidence.
sometimes will tell you that confidence sometimes is narcissistic.
But then that's when I say you got to learn how to
Yeah.
separate and just say, hey, this might be an act.
Yeah.
Like Logan on social media, even though it's a lot like you, is an act. That's a person, and then you are different. And so I've learned how to, dude. I have seriously learned to just quiet the hate. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me.
Oh yeah, no, I move past people online that just have nothing negative
Yeah.
to say. But what I'm kind of getting at
But
too
you keep
is,
all the feet pics that they send you, right?
oh, love them. No, but this is the mentality that I've kind of adopted in the last year, is that like it's not if I can make it happen, it's when I make it happen. I'm not so much worried anymore of like if I'm gonna make it or if this is gonna work out. It's when and like not even how. It's just when. And by whatever means it takes to get there, whether it's this company, that company, this social media platform, this, whatever. It's not if, it's when.
That's how.
So that's my challenge, is like, stop focusing on the if. Start trying to just put more effort into like when. Like when's it going to get there? When am I going to get there? And what am I going to do to get there?
And a lot of people are afraid to post. There's a lot of people out there who want to do social media, but what will I do? What will I say? Just hit record and just post. If you look at Copper John's and Logan's first post compared to where we're
so cringe, dude.
it's different.
I hate the like on this date. I'm like, stop it! Like, you get out of here. I'm not reposting that crap. But no, so this has been fun. I feel like the people who really get us will totally get this episode. Maybe I'm just lying to myself, but at the same time,
I think we had some
these
good
were our
nuggets.
therapy sessions, and I don't care if you guys get it or not. But no, this has been a fun one. I love always getting your perspective on the business side. And Tommy, we have to get you in here because you got so much life experience when it comes to like your side and the professional side of the world and media. But I know I speak for both of us and for Tommy as well when I say like I can't put into words the appreciation we have for the growth that we've experienced in the shorter period of time, and the effort and the love and the shares and the comments and the likes and everything like that. Like, I know it can seem superficial, but with the effort that goes into this, like it makes it worth it to me.
You know what's really cool?
What?
Now I'll end after this. When I'm in front of the 100, and I think with the cast and the crew, there was like 135 of us. Not everyone, but everyone like I was talking to and introducing Copper Johns and who we were and talking about Dad Bods and Beards. Everyone went onto Spotify and typed in Dad, and right when they hit DA, Dad Bods and Beards showed up.
Yes, dude, I love that.
Which means people are listening.
Yes,
and people are looking for us,
that.
and which means we're making an impact, and that's what we want.
Number 1 in Iceland.
No, but I want people to know that, like we were talking about. I want them to know that they're going to be okay, that they're loved. And I was told more than once, I'm too nice at the show.
You're aggressively kind.
I'm aggressively kind. Yeah. I am freaking aggressive.
Yeah. No,
but you have to be, as a business person, you have to be aggressive.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been a super therapeutic show for me. It's like kind of revitalizing.
This is a weird show.
I loved it. This one is like, we're getting better. And this is, I think, but just between the three of us, me, you, and Tommy, and then everybody that's involved with families and just, the whole vodcast network that we're a part of, like, we're just trying to have an impact on your guys' life. So you guys taking the time to be a part of this with us means the world. So thank you. Be proud of who you are. We're stealing that this week for Dad Bods and Beards. And we'll see you next week.
And remember to listen to us while you're sleeping.
Dad Bods at night. Or Dad Bods. No, not Dad Bods after dark. That'd be bad.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. It means the world to us. If you have a chance, please give us a 5-star review, as well as write something a little purty in there so that we know that you know that we know that you care. Anyway, have a great day, guys. See, I can't do it.
Dude, that was good. I liked that. You can't redo it without laughing. That was good.